Bueno, muy buenos días a todos los que se conectan a esta sesión informativa de Colfuturo con LSI. Sean todos bienvenidos a esta sesión donde hablaremos sobre la universidad, oferta académica, proceso de admisión, el convenio que se tiene con Colfuturo y una sorpresa que en este caso es una estudiante colombiana que está llevando a cabo su programa en esta institución y les va a brindar un poco de esa parte experimental de lo que ya es estar en Reino Unido y cursar un programa de posgrado en esta institución. Para ello me acompaña Nathan Brennan, quien es el representante de esta institución. Probablemente muchos de ustedes lo distinguirán de otras sesiones informativas. Y también me acompaña Laura López, quien es la estudiante que les comentaba que nos va a compartir esa experiencia. Así que a todos están invitados a participar en toda la sesión y las preguntas que vayan surgiendo en el camino pueden escribirlas en la cajita de Q&A, sea en español o en inglés, y al final resolveremos cada una de ellas. Así que sin más introducción, thank you so much, Nathan, for being here, and you can go ahead and start the presentation.
Yeah, thank you so much for the warm welcome, and thank you so much to everyone who's taken the time out to be here this afternoon. Normally, some of you I may have met before. LSE visits Bogota and other parts of Colombia every single year, and you'll know I always have to say sorry because the number one phrase that I say when I'm in Bogota is "Hablo un poco de español." So please forgive me. I'm going to be speaking in English for my bits of the session today. But as was mentioned, we have a fantastic real life LSE student, Laura, here today, who's going to be able to help us out if you have questions in Spanish. So, plan is for the first sort of 5, 10 minutes. I'm going to talk a little bit about LSE as a university. So, how LSE is different to other universities, why you might want to consider pursuing a master's or PhD at LSE through the fantastic support offered by Colfuturo. I have to say that with my job, I travel all around the world and I speak to students in so many countries. And I promise you, they are all jealous of you. They are all jealous that Colombian students have this fantastic opportunity, right, to go abroad, to undertake a master's, a PhD at some of the best universities in the world, and the amazing opportunity, right? So I'm really glad you're here, and I hope this helps you with your thinking a little bit today about what you might like to do. And I want to start just by talking a little bit about the UK. And I like to start here because I know that, when you're doing your research and you're thinking about where you might like to go to do a master's or a PhD, it's a big decision, right? And I'm sure there's lots of people on this call, who are looking at the US. You might be looking at Canada, you could be looking at Spain, you could be looking all over Europe. So I like to start just by talking a little bit about the UK and how the UK is quite different to other countries in terms of being a student. And the first thing to say is, as you can see on screen there, right? UK education and UK universities are some of the best you will find anywhere in the world. Places like LSE or UCL or Oxford or Cambridge, right? You already know the names and everyone else does. So to come and study at a university like LSE, that is something that university employers know about, they respect, and you have an amazing educational opportunity within that. But one thing as well, that beyond the kind of reputation and the fact that everyone has heard of LSE and these kind of universities, the way we teach in the UK can be a little bit different to other countries. And so what you can see on screen there is 2 points, right? The specialization and what I call learn by doing. And now, when I say specialization, what I really mean is that what you study in the UK is very, very focused, right? So when you turn up for your master's, it's not like you say, okay, I'm going to do a little bit of this and a little bit of this and a little bit of this. No, you're going to be focused on maybe just one or two subjects in detail to get a really detailed understanding. Because it's a specialized system, it means that a master's degree in the UK is only 1 year. So unlike other countries where a master's could be 2 years, could be 3 years, maybe to do a master's in the UK, because you are specialized from the very first day, is only going to be 1 year. So it has some advantages. But also, one of the really big things about studying at a university like LSE is we want to put the focus on you as a student. And that's what I mean by learn by doing. And maybe Laura will talk about this in a minute. But when you come to LSE as a student, right, your experience is not about just listening to lecturers. The whole point of coming to LSE is not for you to sit there and just listen to a professor, and then when it comes to the exam, just say what they said. The whole point of coming to somewhere like LSE is to develop your own ideas. And to develop your own skills and your own research interests. And so when you come to study at LSE, you might be in a class with maybe 15 other people, and that's really a conversation. It's not about you just listening and nodding your head, right? It's you come with your own ideas, your own research, and we really want you to develop that. Aside from that, the UK, culturally is a very diverse country, and we'll talk about that in a minute. You wouldn't believe how many Colombians there are at LSE, and again, we'll talk about that in a minute. It's also a pretty safe country, and from London in particular, you have really easy access to all of Europe. So even after what I call the B word, we don't like saying Brexit. You can get to Paris in 2 hours. You can get to Amsterdam in an hour. You can get to Brussels, right, in a few hours. And so being in the UK means that you can see London and you can see England, but you can go to Wales, you can go to Scotland, you can go to Ireland and all of Europe as well. Final thing on there I'll mention as well is that if you come to study as a student in the UK, you're able to get something called a post-study work visa. And the post-study work visa allows you to stay in the UK for at least 2 years after you graduate. So it's a little bit different, right, in places like the United States, because in the United States, the post kind of study visa is tied to you getting a job. So if you go to the United States and you don't get a job after you graduate, bye, see you later, you have to go, right, after something like 50 days. In the UK, it is 2 years, and it does not matter if for most of those 2 years, right, you are job searching or you are doing internships. It is a fantastic opportunity if you want to stay in the UK. Now, there are some requirements attached to Colfaturo funding that you are going to need to go back to Colombia at some point. But this is just to say, after you graduate, if you want to stay for a little bit, you absolutely can. And so lots of students stay and develop their kind of experience after they've graduated. And of course, I mean, the clue is in the name. LSE, we are based in London, which is, if anyone on the call has been to London before, you know what an amazing city it is. I'm from Manchester. Manchester is terrible compared to London. Let me tell you, London is just the most amazing, huge, exciting city anywhere. And it's actually been ranked as the best city in the world to be a student in. So you can see on the bottom right of the screen, there's this QS organization, right, who does the league tables and the rankings. One of the rankings they do every single year is rank cities by how good they are to be in as a student. And London, I think for the last 6 years in a row, has been ranked as number one in the world. And that's because it is this amazing, huge city, but there's also so many job opportunities, so many resources, right? Places for you to study and work and learn. So it's an amazing place to be a student. And let me tell you, if you do come to London, I'm sure Laura will agree with me. You are going to learn this. This is the London Tube map. And I always like to show this just to show LSE is right in the middle of London. So if you've been to Covent Garden, very famous for shopping, and Leicester Square, we're really close to the centre of London. But the reason I like to show this is to show you the problem you have, right? Because even if you're sat there and you're thinking, okay, I'd like to study in the UK, I'm going to apply for Colfaturo to get money to go to the UK. Here's the problem. So in London, within a mile of LSE, there are about 20 other universities. If you look at the city as a whole, there are 40 different universities in London, 40. And so the problem for you is, how do you decide? Because each of these universities are very different. Some will be very big, some will be very small. Others will have, lots of different courses. Some like LSE will just have a smaller number of courses. So it's hard to decide. And what I want to do just before I hand over to Laura is just spend 5 minutes explaining how LSE is different to all of these universities. And now I know that every university anywhere in the world will tell you, oh, we're so special, we're so unique. But we actually are. And the reason is because LSE is the only university in the UK that is dedicated to the social sciences. So there are no medics, engineer, there are no chemistry students, no physicists, no engineering. We don't care, go somewhere else. LSE is interested in man-made problems. How does our world work? And I would say the key feature of an LSE student is LSE students are engaged. They are engaged in how the world works, whether that is politically, socially, economically, they're engaged, right? And to kind of give you a sense of the kind of things you might study at LSE, I always like to share some examples of research by LSE academics. So you can see the kind of people who might be teaching you, right? The people you might be doing work with. And so starting at the bottom right, there's a chap called Nicholas Stern. Some of you may have already heard of Nicholas Stern because Nicholas Stern was the first person in history anywhere in the world about 20 years ago to write a report on how climate change was going to change the world economy. So there's this world leading thinker talking about how climate change and green industries was going to change the way people work, the way people they live, right? Who teaches at LSE. So you could come to LSE and study issues of climate change and how we deal with green issues and green economy, right? There's also someone like Peter Pomeranstev, who you can see near the middle, who's a journalist who also teaches at LSE. And he's interested in social media, but particularly how social media affects big world events. So in this book, which is absolutely brilliant, I really recommend, he talks about Brexit. He talks about Trump's election. And talks about how social media and online communities shape how people see the world and shape how these online communities change political situations, right? And you can see this playing out right now in the Middle East, right? With conversations about Israel and Palestine, how these social media communities can shape conversations. So this just to give you a sense of the kind of things you might be doing at LSE, but to put a bit more detail on that, what I'm sharing on screen now is a list of all the different teaching departments we have at LSE. So you can see you can come to LSE to study things like economics and finance, yes, but also as you can see, things like philosophy, things like health policy, international development. We have lots of students at LSE from Columbia studying public policy in the School of Public Policy. And so, yes, you can come to do economics, but there's lots of other things that we do in the social sciences. What's also really important to stress is we're a very small university. And what's really interesting as well, as you can see on screen, is we actually have more graduate students at LSE than undergraduate students. So there are more students at LSE like you doing a master's or doing a PhD than there are undergraduates. So we're a slightly older university, but we are small. And what I always like to share is this, right? Which is if you come and visit LSE, this is one of the first things you see in the middle of campus. And the reason I like to share this is to make the point that LSE is very small, but we actually are the most international university in the UK. We are the most diverse international university, one of the most in the world. And so I love this, right? Because you visit campus and you see this and you know straight away this is a place with people from all around the world with different languages, different accents, different opinions. But the other reason I love this, right, is because we are so used to seeing the map of the world with the United States at the middle, or with the UK at the middle, or with Europe in the middle, right? And this is asking, well, what does the world look like from a different perspective? If you're not from those places, have you got different ideas? Do you see the world differently? And so when I say we're an international university, it is not just about saying, oh, amazing, we have 10 Colombians this year, right? We want students to come with their own ideas and their own perspectives. And LSE genuinely is a conversation between people from different countries with different ideas. I'm going to skip past that because I'm already a little bit over time. What I will say, as I mentioned, LSE is full of Colombian students. Now, you might want to come to London and never speak to a Colombian again. But if you do, you'll find that actually we have more Colombians at LSE than we have students from Brazil. We have more Colombians at LSE than we have from Poland. We have more master's students from Colombia than we have from Spain. So the Colombian community at LSE is huge. You are surrounded by people. If you want those connections to home and those ideas, LSE is a great place to come. I'm going to skip past this because I want to hand over to Laura in a second, but I do just want to end with the most important part of this kind of introduction, which, of course, the reason we're here today, which is the fantastic relationship LSE has with Colfuturo. Now, LSE was the first person or the first university to sign an agreement with Colfuturo. Since that agreement was signed, almost 800 Colombians have come to LSE on Colfuturo to study a master's, to study a PhD, right? So this is a huge community. It's an amazing opportunity. Through Colfuturo, you can receive up to 50,000 US dollars to help fund your studies. And we also contribute some money. So if you come as a Colfuturo student, your fees for LSE will go down, okay, because of you're a Colfuturo student. And you can use that money, right, to study basically whatever you want. There aren't really that many limits on it. So in recent years, we've seen lots of students in public policy, as it says on screen. We've had lots of students who study in law, in management, but you can really do anything with this. The whole point of Cultura is developing the next generation of leaders and innovators. And so keep your options open when you're doing your research. Do have a look around at all the different programs, departments, and we'll talk more about that in a minute when we come to the applications. Now, at this point, I think I'll shut up for at least 10 to 15 minutes. Sorry, I've run a little bit over and ask if Laura, you wanted to come in and I can stop sharing my screen or leave it on, whatever you prefer, just to talk a bit about your experience.
It's fine. Thank you, Nathan. I'm not speaking Spanish. Hola a todos y todas, espero que estén muy bien. Bueno, tenía acá una lista de cosas que quería contar desde mi experiencia estando aquí en LSI. Lo primero es que yo estoy aquí con la beca que da LSI en patrocinio con Futuro, esta beca de 100% de tuition con el semillero de talentos. Entonces, es una beca muy generosa que se la dan a dos personas cada año. Si no están en el semillero de talentos, pues también es una invitación para que lo hagan y miren las posibilidades, cumplen con los requisitos o no, porque es una gran oportunidad. Bueno, creo que ustedes pueden tener algunas preguntas de cómo es estudiar acá en Reino Unido versus estudiar en Colombia. ¿Qué tan diferente es? Yo también tenía muchas de esas preguntas y creo que me sorprendió. Como Nathan decía ahorita, un poco el modelo de LSI se basa en no solamente escuchar las clases magistrales, sino también tener un poco más de discusiones. Por eso la mayoría de clases, por ejemplo, se dividen en lectures y seminars. Entonces, te encuentras que tienes el lecture con quizás 300 personas, ¿no? Entonces, el term pasado tenía una clase que era con todo el departamento. La veíamos todas las personas del departamento, que éramos como 300 personas. Por cierto, subí una maestría en Media and Communication Governance. Entonces, mi departamento es Media and Communication, que hay como 8 maestrías diferentes. La clase la tomaba con todos ellos, pero luego teníamos diferentes grupos de seminario. En el seminario te encontrabas con personas que de hecho no estaban en tu programa, sino que estaban en los otros programas, y eso hacía, por ejemplo, que pues uno pudieras conocer personas diferentes a las de tu maestría, y creo que eso es súper enriquecedor, pero segundo, que también las discusiones fueran de alguna forma diferentes también. Entonces, en los seminarios son para mí, digamos, una forma también no solamente de aclarar dudas sobre la clase magistral, sino también tener la oportunidad de discutir a profundidad las lecturas que están asignadas para la clase, poder entenderlas mejor, poder crear discusión a partir de ellas, discutir casos prácticos. Creo que sí es un modelo diferente, por ejemplo, el que yo tuve de estudiar en Colombia, en donde muchas veces simplemente es el profesor dando la clase y sí hay algunas actividades, pero no se trata necesariamente, muchas clases los profesores simplemente daban pues la clase magistral y ya está, y no se discutía tanto. Aquí sí hay un foco sobre eso y por eso de hecho están ubicadas, muchas de las clases tienen esta alocación que les digo que es diferente. Em, También una de las preguntas que creo que ustedes tendrán o como miedos que pueden tener es sobre el inglés, porque ese era uno de los miedos que yo tenía, como de qué tan bueno será mi inglés, no lo, o sea, sé que hablo inglés, pero no me he probado como para ver si puedo hacer una maestría en inglés. El hecho de que uno, el sí sea la Universidad del Reino Unido que más estudiantes internacionales tiene, hace que también todas las personas sean muy comprensivas y sean muy amables, muy abiertas. Recuerdo que el primer día de clases, eh, el head of department, como ya olvidé cómo traducir eso, la cabeza, así como el decano de mi departamento, dijo, no olviden ser amables los unos con los otros, especialmente porque estamos en un ambiente en donde muchos estamos hablando el inglés como segunda lengua. No solamente los estudiantes son internacionales, los profesores también lo son. Muchos de ellos también hablan inglés como segunda lengua, entonces entienden las frustraciones que a veces podemos tener, entienden como los problemas que a veces podemos tener con el idioma. Y entonces, de hecho, les sí se esfuerza, creo yo, para que las personas, claro, tienes que tener un nivel lo suficientemente bueno como para tomar las clases, pero pues no importa si cometes errores al hablar o al expresarte en clase, no se van a fijar en eso y no es en lo que van a poner como su foco cuando te dan feedback, sino en tus ideas y es lo que quieres decir. Entonces, si ustedes están teniendo dudas sobre o miedos o temores sobre el inglés, que tan bueno puede ser o no, mi recomendación es que pues lo practiquen, pero no dejan que eso los detenga. Especialmente, el ESI también tiene diferentes oportunidades en las que puedes mejorar tu inglés. Entonces tiene un Language Center donde puedes mejorar tus habilidades en writing, si es en lo que, academic writing, si es en lo que crees que tienes problemas, o en academic speaking, muchas oportunidades de nuevo para superar esas barreras. Am, ¿Qué más les cuento sobre estudiar en el ESI? Creo que para mí lo más maravilloso de poder estar acá es poder conectar con personas que de ninguna otra forma yo hubiera podido conectar. ¿No? Conectar no solamente con colombianos y con la gran comunidad colombiana que hay acá, sino también conectar con otras personas de Latinoamérica, conectar con personas de África, con personas de Asia, con personas de Europa. Creo que esto es algo, creo que Londres es de por sí una ciudad muy multicultural. Tú vas en el metro y estás escuchando todos los idiomas posibles y no son turistas, son personas que viven acá. Eh, y eso hace que tú no te sientas como un outsider al final del día, sino que de alguna forma, o así lo he sentido yo, encajas fácil en la ciudad, en las dinámicas de la ciudad, no te sientes como un extranjero, como sí pasa en otras ciudades europeas, que si no hablas en París, si no hablas francés, ya te están mirando un poco raro. Aquí de hecho puedes hablar lo que sea, inglés, español, árabe, italiano, y es la vida, es la vida de Londres. Todo el mundo es diferente, todo el mundo está hablando su propio idioma también. Por supuesto, el inglés nos conecta a todos, pero ha sido una experiencia maravillosa. Ahorita yo estoy en mi proceso de empezar mi disertación. El ESI también tiene muchos apoyos para todos los estudiantes de maestría, no solamente el apoyo que está dentro del departamento de cada maestría, sino un apoyo institucional. Eh, en donde pues te dan talleres o también te ofrecen diferentes servicios y ayudas dependiendo de lo que necesites para, por ejemplo, aprender a citar mejor o para, por ejemplo, si quieres mejorar tu pregunta de investigación, también tiene un servicio para eso. Si quieres mejorar tu revisión de literatura, también te pueden colaborar con eso. Ya, creo que eso es todo. Les invito a que si tienen alguna pregunta específica sobre la vida acá en el ESI o la vida en Londres, la hagan y pues al final podemos discutir sobre eso.
Thank you so much. I think I got most of that, and I don't think you said anything too awful about LSE, which is great. We didn't tell her what to say, I promise. So that's all really positive. Thank you so much. And I can see lots of questions coming in. So we'll turn to those in about 10, 15 minutes. But before we do go to questions, I've seen a lot of people in the chat and in the Q&A ask a little bit about how the application process works and how you can make a strong application right to LSE and how that works with Core Futuro. So let's talk a little bit about the specifics of how to study at LSE and what the application looks like. So the first thing to say is that there is a lot of choice out there. As you can see on screen, we have in total about 200 different postgraduate programs at LSE. Some of those will be very specific. So, for example, within media and communications, which Laura is studying in, you can do specific courses, just on gender, okay, or just on media and communications and law, okay. But there's also some very general ones where you can do a little bit of everything within media. So there's a lot of choice. And so what I would recommend is if right now, if you are researching, okay, what courses could be for you. If you go on the LSE website, you'll see a box at the top like this search bar. And what I would do is rather than trying going through every single, department, every single course, just put in that box some things you're interested in. Okay. So if you want to learn more about, I think the example I've got here is a development. Okay. So if you're interested in development, it will then show you all of the master's courses we have at LSE related to development. And you can see there's 95, okay, where the courses involve development. So if you have specific interests, you might come at it from an economic perspective and then be an economic student. It could be a policy perspective, so it could be in public policy, right? So when you're doing your research, really spend some time here. And what I would really recommend, and remember this, because I'm going to talk about more of this in a minute, when you read on each program, have a look in detail at the section called program structure and courses, because this is where it's going to break down exactly what you study on the course, right? So if you have to do macroeconomics, if you have to do research papers, right, it's all broken down in this program section. And that's where you'll really be able to figure out what's the best course for you. Now, remember that, okay, because I'm going to talk about that again when it comes to application. So remember what I said there, the research for the program structure. Okay, but let's talk about how the admissions actually works. And it's relatively simple. So if you want to apply to study at LSE, and if you want to also take Cultura funding, really the first step is to make an application through our online application system. Now, this opens every year, the year before you want to start. So if you want to start this September 2024, it opened in September 2023, and it's open right now, okay? Within the application, you have to pay an assessment fee, which is currently about £80. But that does give you the option to be considered for two different programs. So when you're doing your research, you might want to think, I'm going to have two choices on the application form. So maybe this is my first choice, this is my second choice. It gives you a little bit more, opportunity to have those two courses. Now, in the application, we need a few things. You need a transcript from your bachelor's degree, okay, of what your overall grade was and what modules you took. We then need something called a statement of academic purpose, which I'm going to come back to. So again, hold that for a minute. We need a CV to see your job history, your employment history, and then two references. When it comes to the references, the best thing you can do is to get references from professors or people you researched with or people you've been taught by. It is possible to use professional references, but because you're coming to LSE to study, and not for a job, the people who know you as a student will be the best people to write references. So don't worry too much if you're thinking to yourself, oh my God, I left university 20 years ago, all my professors are dead. Uh, you might want to use professional instead, okay? But if you can, academic references are best. Some courses at LSE will also ask for either a GRE or a GMAT test. Generally, these are just courses in things like finance, things like economics, and things like management. So the business, economics, finance type courses. Most of courses don't require it, but do just be careful about that. And finally, if you want to do a research degree, a PhD, we need to know what your research topic is going to be. So probably the most important aspect of the application for PhD applicants is the research proposal, where you tell us, what your topic is, what your question is, what professors you want to work with, those kind of things. This is really important, okay? There is no deadline for most courses. So we work at LSE on a rolling admissions basis. And what that means is the applications will open in October, but we don't know when they'll close. They will close once the program is full, basically. And so what that means is I normally recommend that people try and apply by January. Okay, so if it opens in October, apply by January. You can still apply now, it's not a problem, but the problems might be a little bit later when you have less time, right, to sort out the visa, or you have less time to apply for accommodation or apply for additional scholarships. So applications are open now. The courses will close one by one once they're full, but the sooner you can apply, the better. Okay. Notice as well that some PhD programs do have deadlines, and that's because for PhD programs, there's normally also an interview and meetings, right, with professors. But for master's programs, generally, you don't need to. Now, for all of our master's programs and PhD programs, we will set minimum requirements on what grades we expect to see from your previous studies. And now let me tell you, if you don't know how the UK grading system works, do not try now. Laura will tell you it is ridiculous. Okay, like the best mark you can get is 70. So when we talk about on our websites having something called a 2-1 undergraduate degree, what I've done on screen is put a translation of what that is in Colombia. So if you graduate as a bachelor's student from a Colombian university, we're looking for grades of sort of 15 and upwards in that degree. In the same, if you want to do a PhD, we normally want you to have a master's degree already. And again, the grades would be sort of 15 out of 20. I've already mentioned that some programs need GRE or GMAT. You can have a look about that on our website. And the final thing there, of course, is we need to confirm the English language proficiency as well. Because as Laura mentioned, you're going to be in classes in English and reading research in English. So it's quite high. So we accept IELTS, we accept TOEFL, we accept Cambridge, all kinds of different tests. And the really important thing is you do not need this when you apply. So if we make you an offer, okay, let's say we make you an offer today, you have until September to do a test. You have until basically you start at LSE to go and do a test. So if you don't have a test right now, don't worry. Apply with what you have. And then if you need to do a test later, you can do it. And lots of people will do the test, over the summer, over Easter, whatever it is. Okay, that's the basic stuff. But here's the problem. Every year at LSE, we receive way, way, way more applications than we have places. And so last year, we had 45,000 applications for just 4,500 places. It means we actually have more applications per place than Oxford and Cambridge. Okay. So in my opinion, it's harder to get into LSE than Oxford and Cambridge. Now, I don't put that on screen to scare anyone, although I bet I bet a few people will be, okay? But it's to make a point. which is that LSE, okay, we do not just care about grades. Okay? When it comes to the application, we look at everything together. So yes, we want really strong students, right, who have got good grades in their bachelor's degree, but you do not need to be a perfect student. You do not need to have 10 out of 10, 100 out of 100 perfect marks in your bachelor's degree. You don't need it, okay? As long as you have that 15 plus, we look at everything else. And probably the most important thing for you to worry about, or not worry, okay, but focus on, is the statement of academic purpose. Now, there's lots of information about this on our website, but to really quickly summarize, this is a two-page, basically motivation letter, okay, where you explain to us your motivation for wanting to study at LSE, wanting to study on the program, and what you want to do. But I need to really stress that this is really different to what you would write for other countries. So let's say you apply to a university in the USA, okay? In your letter, you'll say, oh, I love your university. I really like your campus. I play basketball, and I love to cook. And my favorite day of the week is Wednesday, and all of these things, right? Um, and I'll be honest, we don't care about any of those things. Complete honesty, we don't care. What we care about when it comes to the application is why should we want you in our classroom? Okay. Why should we want you over the 9 other people who are also applying for the same thing, right? And so from that sense, the majority of your statement, as I says on screen, at least 80% needs to be academic. And so what I would actually recommend, and I'm not sure I'm allowed to say this, but I like Culfaturo, so I'm going to say it, is in your statement, think about that program structure section that I mentioned, right? Where it says you're going to do this course and you're going to do this course and you're going to do this course. And talk about those courses in the application. So if you see that on the economics masters, you have to do macroeconomics, write a paragraph talking about everything you know about macroeconomics, a really good essay you wrote as an undergraduate, things you've read, right, etc. And then in the next paragraph, you can say, oh, I also have to do microeconomics, right? And here's all the things I already know and my ideas and blah, blah, blah. Show us that you are a good fit for the course. We are looking for people not just who are smart, because everyone applying to LSE is smart, I promise. Okay, we're looking for people who are the right fit on the course. And then when they turn up to class, they're going to be those people, like we talked about before, who can put their hand up and say to the professor, you're wrong. And here's the reason why. And they can have these debates and these conversations with their classmates, etc. So the 80% needs to be the academics. Any space you have left over is everything else. So tell us about your story, okay? Tell us about what you want to do in the future. Tell us why this is important to you, okay? Any other skills you have, but never forget the focus is on the course that you're applying to, okay? Just to wrap up, some information on the kind of financial side. So the cost of a master's degree at LSE varies hugely. The courses vary from about £16,000 to up to, I think it's now £45,000. So it could be anywhere between, 20,000 US dollars and like 60,000 US dollars. It's huge. So do your research there and obviously keep that in mind that there may be some courses where even if you get the full Corpaturo loan, it might not cover 100% of everything, okay? But that's why the thing at the bottom of the screen is also important, because if you are awarded Culfaturo, it is still possible to get additional funding from LSE. It's not guaranteed, but it is still possible to be considered for LSE scholarships and bursaries on top of the Culfaturo funding. So if you're in a situation where the money from Culfaturo doesn't cover everything, have a chat to us and have a look at what we have available. One question I did see in the chat that I'll mention very quickly as well is that you do not need to have a unconditional final offer from LSE to be considered for Culfaturo. So you can apply for Colfatero funding, even if you've not yet applied for LSE. And I think, and Lady can correct me if I'm wrong, you have maybe 2 or 3 years to use that money and make that application. So if anyone on the call, and I think there was one person saying, oh my God, I've applied to LSE, but I've not heard back yet, don't worry, you can still apply for Colfatero. Though I think I'm right in saying that if you already have an offer to study at LSE, you're looked at better, basically, by Colfatero because you already have that place confirmed, all right? So don't panic, don't rush. You don't need to have this all sorted and finalized just yet. You can either apply to LSE first or Colfatero first, okay? Whichever way works best. Just keep an eye on those deadlines. Okay. That's it from me in terms of the presentation. I can see Lady again. And yeah, I know myself and Nora will be so happy to answer questions. And Lady, I don't know if you want to pick out ones that are popular or how it's going to work, but yeah, thank you for listening.
Yeah, so before that, thank you so much, Nathan, for all the information. Thanks, Laura, for telling us about your experience in LSE. We're gonna go ahead with the questions, but before that, I just want to explain the agreement that we have with LSE, because I saw in the Q&A that maybe it's not clear, like what's the agreement, so I'm gonna explain very briefly. Para eso voy a remitirme a la página web, que es, si tal vez... Nathan, can you please stop share screen so I can share mine, please? Thank you. Okay, good. So just to explain the agreement, first of all, you can check it here in scholarships, becas. And give me just one sec. Listo. Entonces, muy importante revisar acá, en este caso son dos beneficios. Uno es un descuento del 20% sobre el valor de la matrícula para todos los beneficiarios de Colfuturo admitidos a programas de maestría y de doctorado. Y el segundo beneficio es la beca del 100% en el valor de la matrícula para un estudiante del programa de semillero de talentos. Y este semillero debe contar con mínimo 3 meses de antigüedad en este programa. Entonces deben tener en cuenta que para acceder a la beca del 100% deben ser parte del semillero y tener esos 3 meses de antigüedad. Ya con eso dicho, también vi preguntas sobre el programa de semillero, así que también los quiero ilustrar sobre dónde está esa información. En la sección Programas, Semillero de Talentos, van a encontrar la descripción que quizás Laura nos puede explicar ya desde su experiencia cómo fue el semillero, pero pueden encontrar acá las generalidades del público al cual está dirigido el semillero, que como se pueden dar cuenta son estudiantes de último año de pregrado, egresados con máximo 4 años de graduados y o docentes con excelencia académica de todas las regiones de Colombia. Y también vi el tema de la convocatoria, así que les voy a mostrar cuándo abre la próxima convocatoria, aunque creo que ya está abierta. Acá está. Abrió el 26 de enero, cierra el 4 de marzo y los resultados son el 22 de marzo. Cabe mencionar que si ustedes se postulan a esta convocatoria, no van a ser elegibles para la beca del 100%. Recuerden, los semilleros que entren a este beneficio deben llevar mínimo 3 meses de permanencia en este programa. Así que la invitación es, pueden acceder si ustedes desean para tener el apoyo del semillero, pero no van a ser tenidos en cuenta para la beca del 100%. Esto simplemente como información. Y ya con esto, tal vez, Laura, si nos puedes contar un poquito de tu experiencia en el semillero.
Y también vi por ahí un par de preguntas de qué recomendaba para el perfil académico, que es el documento con el que aplicas a la beca. Entonces voy a tratar de fusionar las dos. El semillero te da talleres sobre, en general, cómo planear tu posgrado en el exterior, sea donde sea que lo quieras hacer. Y también te da consejos de, por ejemplo, cómo hacer tu hoja de vida, cómo hacer los ensayos, los personal statements que tienes que presentar a las universidades y cuenta con un servicio de revisión de ensayos, que creo que eso me parece bastante interesante. Tienes una persona que pues se especializa en ese tipo de cosas y que ha leído un montón de ensayos diciéndote, mira, haz estas correcciones, mejor que por este lado, por este otro. Creo que eso es lo que yo más resalto del semillero. Eh, Ahora, sobre la aplicación a la beca, LSI, para LSI, tienes que hacer un perfil académico en donde cuentas. Uno, ¿cuál es tu interés de investigación? Como de cuál es el tema en el que tú, por ejemplo, harías tu disertación y por qué elegiste el sí. Y luego va otra sección en donde explicas tu hoja de vida y también como otras cosas que hayas hecho adicional. Mi recomendación, ¿cuál es? Y en general para todas las personal statements o aplicaciones a universidades, y es tu aplicación tiene que contar una historia y de alguna forma ser eh, como, como que todo gire hacia lo mismo, creo yo. Esto, obviamente, no soy la persona que elige las becas, no tengo ni idea de por qué necesariamente me habrán elegido a mí sobre otras personas, pero, por ejemplo, yo para mi aplicación me centré en eso. Mi programa es en Media and Communication Governance. Tiene mucho que ver con libertad de expresión, libertad de prensa, y eso es algo que yo estaba haciendo en Colombia. Entonces traté de mostrar y mostré mi aplicación, cómo giraba en torno a todo ese tema, cómo había construido mi carrera en torno a ese tema, qué experiencia tenía. Mi disertación, por supuesto, iba a estar relacionada con ese tema, por ejemplo, también por qué elegir el sí. Entonces mencionaba algunas, el consejo que les dio Nathan ahorita, mencionaba algunas clases que de hecho tenían que ver con esos temas que a mí me gustaban, ¿no? Tiene que ser, creo que yo creo una aplicación compacta y que muestre que ustedes le van a sacar provecho a la maestría porque ya tienen una historia con eso que quieren estudiar, ¿no? Probablemente elijan a una persona que se ve que tiene como toda esa trayectoria en ese tema y tiene claro por qué quiere estudiar esto frente a una persona que, no sé, lleva una historia de trabajar con ciertos temas, pero ahora quiere cambiar, que no está para nada mal, pero puede, o sea, creo que puede ser menos consistente que una aplicación que muestra que tiene de alguna forma una historia compacta. Esas serían mis recomendaciones y también pongan todo lo que han hecho. Yo ponía, por ejemplo, como los voluntariados que había hecho. No sé si eso haga alguna diferencia o no al momento de la beca, pero yo puse todos los voluntariados que había hecho, todos como otros premios que me había ganado, pónganlos. De nuevo, no sé si eso hace la diferencia o no, pero yo lo hice y aquí estoy.
Muchas gracias, Laura. Entonces, como le mencionaba, esto es más por un tema informativo, porque sé que muchos se preguntaban sobre cómo era el convenio y cuál era el beneficio. Sin embargo, aún sigo viendo algunas preguntas, así que rápidamente les voy a explicar. Para acceder al beneficio del 20% de la beca del 100%, la hoja de ruta es el programa Crédito Beca. Deben hacer su postulación por medio del formulario que se encuentra activo. Va a cerrar el 29 de febrero, así que tienen este lapso, creo que de 2 semanas, para que hagan su postulación con el SI. Estén admitidos o no a la universidad, pueden hacer su postulación. Y como lo mencionaba Nathan, en caso de ser ganadores del Crédito Beca en mayo, tienen 2 años para conseguir esa admisión y hacer como tal uso del beneficio. Ya en cuanto a los descuentos, ¿qué pasa? La del 100% es únicamente para semilleros que hayan sido elegidos mínimo en la convocatoria de octubre del año pasado. Si ustedes no hacen parte de ese grupo, no van a poder recibir esa beca del 100%, pero sí pueden postularse al crédito beca y recibir el descuento del 20% en el valor de la matrícula. Los que sí cumplan con ser semilleros y llevar estos 3 meses de permanencia en el programa, sí van a poder ser elegibles para la beca del 100%. Entonces, simplemente para tener claridad y que cuando se haga la lista de seleccionados de Colfuturo, se va a enviar toda esa lista a LSI para que sean ellos quienes, bajo su criterio, que ya Laura nos mencionó que pues es algo confidencial, pero bajo ese criterio se decide quiénes van a ser los ganadores de esa beca del 100%. Así que espero que esto haya sido un poco más de utilidad para responder esas dudas. Y ahora sí vamos a proceder con las preguntas de Q&A. Sin embargo, vamos a aprovechar si alguno desea abrir su micrófono y hablar directamente con Nathan o con Laura, puede levantar su mano y yo le habilito el micrófono para que pueda hablar directamente con alguno de los dos. Bueno, entonces veo la mano de Daniel. Puedes seguir, Daniel. Ya puedes hablar, Daniel, ya te habilité el micrófono.
Ay, ¿me escuchan?
Sí.
Perdón. Sí, mi pregunta era con respecto al programa se llama Gender Media and Culture. He visto que este es el único programa en el Reino Unido que está categorizado como MSC, que es diferente a MA. No lo sé decir. Me pregunto es qué hace que este programa esté categorizado en esta categoría en el London School y qué lo hace resaltar, por ejemplo, sobre otros programas.
Okay, so let me translate to Nathan. So Daniel is asking about the difference of the gender culture program because it's a Master of Science, so he wants to know what's the difference and what like make that program important in LSE.
Yeah, thank you. I think I had a little bit of that. Thank you for the question, Daniel. Before I answer that, I'm so sorry. I'm going to mention one thing very quickly, which is apologies. I think I confused slightly on the slide where I showed the minimum entry requirements for the grades in the bachelor's. I think I slightly got confused with the translation there. For those of you who have graduated from a Columbian university, just to say the minimum GPA we would expect is 3.8. Okay, so forgive me for any confusion there with the 15 out of 20. For you, what it means is we're looking for sort of 3.8 GPA, and you can have a look on the LSE website for that. But yeah, in terms of the question about gender and the MSc, the names that we give to the different degrees do really vary. So Daniel, you've seen we have Masters of Science, we have Masters of Arts, we have Masters of Public Policy, Masters of Research. I would say the reason that we have most of our degrees are Masters of Science is because we are a social science university, and that means that the way we approach things like gender in the media might be a little bit different of universities, and that we're coming at it from more of a scientific perspective. Laura, as a media and comms student, do you want to come in on that a little bit about maybe the difference between studying media and comms at LSE as opposed to another university?
Eh, sí, como creo que el, el foco del Masters of Science, del MSc, comparado con MA, es que el Masters of Science creo que tienes un foco mucho más grande en, por ejemplo, investigación. Entonces, pues, métodos cualitativos, cuantitativos, hay un gran foco en eso, porque es Masters in Science. No he estudiado nunca un Masters in Art, pero creo que la diferencia también varía en eso, como qué tanto se espera tú que hagas esta investigación y qué tanto peso tiene este tipo de, pues, de contenido. Um, sí, lo que puedo decir.
Yeah, thank you.
Voy a seguir con Juan. You can go ahead, Juan.
Y uno le dice, oiga, hola, ¿ahí me escuchan?
Sí.
Perfecto. Pues tengo como una pregunta para Lady o Laura y otra para Neita. Para Lady o Laura es más o menos puntual y es cómo Colfuturo maneja el tema de las aplicaciones a programas con doble diploma, siendo una de ellas LSI. I'm from Nathan. I want to know how is the system that they work out there in London School of Economics about the dual degree applications and admission process.
Great, thank you, Juan. So yeah, in terms of the dual degrees, I'll come in really quickly. So they can be a little bit different to what I talked about when it comes to the admissions, because essentially the way it works is that the you might not actually apply to LSE on a dual degree, even if one of the years is LSE. And what I mean by that is, let's say the first year of the degree is at the University of California, and we have a number in actually in media and comms where the first year is University of California. Okay, your application would go to them. Okay, but wherever the first year is, that's who you apply to, and LSE academics will still be part of the selection. So actually it means the system can be a little bit different for dual degrees. So, and it should say really clearly on the website whether you apply to us or University of California or Sion's Po or Bocconi or whoever it is. But yeah, thank you for the question.
Listo. Y del lado de Colfuturo, la pregunta que mencionaba sobre los programas que son de doble titulación, en ese escenario Colfuturo hace el mismo proceso de financiación, entonces no hay como una diferencia, se sigue el mismo sistema de financiación. Sin embargo, si te refieres a algo puntual, por favor escribe a nuestro correo Yo Soy Futuro y desde ahí yo te daré más información. Pero en general los programas de doble titulación se manejan de la misma manera que los programas de un solo grado.
Perfecto, gracias.
Vamos a seguir. We're gonna go with Carlos. You can go ahead, Carlos.
Okay, Chase, thank you. See, the questions that I have is mainly for Nathan from LSE. And it's basically about the application and how is the starting academic year for part-time on MBAs. So the first question is related to weight criteria. So what is the weight criteria that students should have when they apply for MBA or MBA programs? Let's say across all the requirements that you mentioned, the statement of academic purpose, CV, reference letter, GMAT scores, and the research proposals. That's the first question. Then we can go with the other ones.
Okay. So the first thing to say, so at LSE, our MBA program is a little bit different to other universities in that our MBA is split between 4 or 5 different universities. So you actually do 1 semester at LSE, 1 semester at NYU, I think, and there's a couple of others. So the MBA is a little bit different at LSE, and just be prepared for that. So when you do your research, you'll see that our program is a bit different. And for that reason, again, like we talked about with a dual degree, the application can be a little bit different. Okay, so just what I'm going to say is if you are just an MBA, have a look at the specifics first. But in terms of work experience, so with the exception of the School of Public Policy, generally we don't ask for work experience. Something like MBA is a little bit different, and normally we would expect students to have at least sort of 2 or 3 years experience, and similar on a kind of a management master's as well, if you go down that path. But generally speaking, there's no minimum expectation on that. We get some students at LSE, who just finished their bachelor's that summer. We get some people like me who have a break for a couple of years and then go back and do a master's. And we even get people who, have are 60 and 70 and have just retired and are just doing it for fun. So there's no minimum on that. But with MBA, Masters in Management, we'd be looking at least sort of 2 or 3 years for those programs.
All right. So let me refresh then a little bit more the question. What I mean by weight criteria is basically the percentage or the rates out of, let's say, 100% across all your requirements, saying the academic purpose statement, the
Okay.
GPA.
So in terms of weighting, Carlos, you've asked an impossible question, and I'll tell you why you've asked an impossible question. Okay, because every single person's journey to LSE is different. And now, for example, if we have someone who graduates from university and then immediately wants to start a master's, of course, their bachelor's grades are going to be way more important than work experience because they're not going to have much work experience. And so everyone's journey is different. The way I would phrase it is rather than saying, okay, this is 20%, this is 20%, this is 20%, I would say step 1 is having the grades. So step 1 is what's going to get you considered. Having that GPA we talked about of the 3.8, I think it was. And then everything else, the references, the statement, the CV, is all looked at equally together as one package. So I wouldn't worry too much about saying, okay, this is the most important, this is the least important. As long as you have the grades, then everything is looked at together as a package.
Now, Nathan, and this is, I understand the constraints about the let's say the full-time or part-time call for tutor has, but this is just a personal question. Uh, and during the, how long is the, no, it's not how long, as the question is, what is the workload or the study load that a student has for part-time MBA or MBA studies?
Okay. It's I
Within
would
the
say,
UK, because I'm not talking about the executive MBA.
yeah,
Let's say the part-time within the UK.
yeah. So the first thing to say is that with the part-time degrees, do just be careful when you're doing your research. And this is for everyone on the call. So the reason to be careful with part-time is normally it's not possible to do it part-time as an international student if you don't have UK residency. And the reason for that is because to come and study on the course, you need a student visa. And to get to the level to be eligible for a student visa, you have to do a certain number of study hours
Yeah,
per
that's
week.
why I said
And
that it was
yeah,
quite a little bit personal. Let's say you have the settlement status. In that case, what would it be? Let's say the study
yeah.
load a week.
So normally, if you're a part-time student, you're looking, because this I did this, you're normally looking at the sort of 15 hours a week, I would say, as a part-time student study. With the rest of your time, people normally are working. So normally about 15 hours. If you're a full-time student, it will be closer to 40 hours a
I would
week.
expect that most of the courses are during the weekends and let's say sometimes including Fridays, couple of hours and Thursdays.
So it's hard to predict when they are. And what I'm happy to do, Carlos, is just because it sounds like you have a few questions about this. I know after this presentation, we're definitely going to share further information. So I'll have to say if we just make this the last question, and then if anyone else
Yes,
has
that's
got
the
any
last question.
final ones, I'm
Okay,
happy
thank you.
to carry this on afterwards. But yeah, normally sort of 15 hours or so a week part time, but we don't know when those hours will fall because the schedule is figured out each year, depending on the academics and the students. So actually, it's very likely that if you were part-time, there would be some days of the week where you'd need to be at LSE like during the daytime. So it could be that you have a class in the afternoon. We don't really teach on weekends, I'm afraid. So even if you are a part-time student at LSE, you should kind of plan in your head, okay, well, maybe Wednesday afternoon, I'm going to be in classes at LSE or Thursday morning, that kind of thing.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that's all the questions that I have.
Thank you for your questions.
Okay, so we have a lot of questions and we do not have like much time, so I'm gonna try to like select the ones. Okay, so we're gonna go with Angelo or Angelo. You can go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, you can go ahead.
Okay, thank you. This question is for Nathan. Hi, Nathan. I have a question about the application system. I uploaded my application, but I would like to change a referee because I think that is more competitive. It is possible after submit it?
Oh, Angelo. Okay. Generally, no. I'm sorry to say. Is that once you've applied, that's kind of what we're going to look at. Now, it is possible to send us additional information, but I would say only do that if we ask for it. So if you've already applied, I'm really pleased that you've got a better reference now, but only send it to us if we've asked for it, okay? If we've asked for extra references, because as you saw, when we have 45,000 applications, it delays things for you, it delays things for us. So sadly, I would say what you've got is probably what we're gonna look at. If we ask for extra references, please feel free to send us. But if not, yeah, I think hopefully they've written good references. Your two references now, I'm sure, are really good. So don't worry too much about it.
Okay, thank you.
My pleasure.
We're gonna go with Crystal.
Hello, do you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
This question is for Nathan, and I also have another question for Colfuturo. Hi, Nathan. My question is, I already applied to LSE, but I haven't received a response yet, and Colfuturo's deadline is on February 29. And as far as I'm concerned, you must select the program that you're going to like apply for the credit. So, do you believe that maybe in this week or the next one, I will receive a response in order to like select the program that I will apply with to Colfuturo's credit?
Yeah, Crystal, I would love to be able to say yes or no, but I can't. In that, again, we receive so many applications. Generally speaking, from start to finish, it normally takes about 2 months, okay, from you sending an application to receiving an answer. So the sad answer is I don't know. I can't predict, okay, whether you'll have a decision. But the important thing, I think, is that hopefully, as I mentioned in the presentation, is that, and lady, please correct me if I'm wrong, you can apply for Colfuturo before you have an offer to study at LSE. So you can absolutely complete the Colfuturo application at the end of this month, and I would really encourage you to do so. Hopefully that's great. You get your place, right? And say you've applied to LSE, and then hopefully in a couple of weeks' time at the latest, you'll hear back from us. And so, lady, I don't know if there's anything to add on that, but Crystal, basically, my message is don't worry. Okay, you're in good time, and
Yeah,
just apply for Colfuturo even if you don't
Okay,
have a decision yet.
yeah.
so, well, this question is for Lady. So, digamos que si tengo, o sea, tengo, digamos, un plan B, por ejemplo, y yo me postulo aplicando al ESI, que es como mi plan A, y no me aceptan, luego puedo cambiarlo.
Sí,
O,
si en mayor es seleccionada, puedes solicitar un cambio de programa.
ok, y por ejemplo, para los convenios, si fuese que voy a aplicar, digamos, porque yo soy semillera, entonces voy a aplicar, por ejemplo, al crédito beca, pero aplico también como a pues al convenio del 100% con él, si digamos no me aceptan y no sé, ahí ya no puedo hacer nada, ¿cierto? O cómo haría si pudiese de pronto aplicar al de UCL o algo así, no sé.
No,
Es
en ese
como un
caso, al
proceso.
ser semillera, no puedes hacer cambio para la beca de UCL. O sea, en este caso, si te postulas para la beca del 100% de LSI y vas a hacer cambio de programa, ya no puedes aplicar a la de UCL.
Ok, y mi última duda es para ti también. Él sí tiene unos programas de ayuda financiera como de complemento y también creo que hay un programa pues para estudiantes overseas que es del 100%. Eh, Mi duda es si yo aplico digamos también a esos programas que ofrece la misma universidad, ¿tengo algún problema con aplicar al convenio del 100% como semillero?
Depende de la universidad. Si quieres, formulemos la pregunta para Nathan, probablemente él es el quien la puede responder.
Ah, Nathan, as far as I'm concerned, LSE has its own financial support programs, and I'm asking, lady, if you apply to a scholarship there at LSE directly with LSE, not through Colfuturo, or another financial support. Do you have any problem, or is there any problem to apply also to Colfuturo's scholarship of 100% of tuition?
No, absolutely not. So very quickly, because I know we're already over time, but I will say, so once you've applied to LSE, and I really hope you do well, right? And very soon you'll have an offer from us. What then happens is on the application portal, you'll get a new section, which is called like graduate funding or funding application, right? And what you do is you put some information into that section about your situation. So if you know that you're going to get Colfuturo funding, you could write in that and say, I've already got confirmed this amount of money, okay? And I've got this amount of money saved up. And what it will automatically do is figure out if we think you need more to help fund your studies. And you can also put in extra information if you want to be considered for other scholarships. Okay, so yes, you can absolutely do that. If you need the support, don't worry. What I will say, and this is for everyone, I know there's still quite a few people on the call. This is one of the other reasons to apply early, because although there isn't a deadline on applying, there is a deadline on being considered for our scholarships and our bursaries, which is always in April. So basically, in order to be considered for LSE scholarships as well as Colfuturo, you need to have an offer to study with us by the middle of April. So, Crystal, you've got plenty of time, don't worry. But all I'm trying to say is for anyone else on the call who's kind of thinking about applying, one really good reason to apply early is you want to have a decision by April so you can fill out that online form and be considered. I can't guarantee what will happen with that. It might be that you get an award, it might not be that you get an award, but just because you've got Qual Futuro doesn't mean you can't also get LSE funding if you need it.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
That's all.
Well, I know, Nathan, we have a lot of questions. Maybe if you can give us your contact email, because I guess we're not gonna like have time to take all of them.
Yeah, what I think might be best is because I know there's been so many people on the call today. Lady, if
Yeah.
you're happy with us to share the list of everyone who kind of logged in today, we can send an email from LSE to everyone, and then you have contact details, you have the web page for Colombian students, and we'll be more than happy to answer questions. I can see there's a
Yeah.
crazy number to answer, but you know it's Friday night here, and I'm ready for a glass of wine now. So as long as no one is gonna get too angry at me, maybe yeah, we can follow up afterwards with an email.
Okay, yeah, that's better. So I'm sorry, like I know that I have a lot of questions, but as Nathan said, we do not have much time. So you're gonna receive an email with the contact email. So if you have any questions, you can just send to Nathan. And just to conclude the session, I wanna like take advantage that Laura is here. So maybe Laura, just to finish, can you give us a piece of advice for all of the candidate students to the LSE programs?
Bueno, no sé, además de todo lo que he dicho, no sé qué otro consejo darles. Mi consejo es, si no han aplicado, apliquen. También piensen su proyecto de estudiar en el exterior con tiempo. Entonces, como lo dijo Nathan, ya ahorita muchas personas ya recibieron ofertas. No quiere decir que no puedan aplicar ahorita, pero mi consejo sería es, si no tienen afán de hacerlo este año, planeen todo con tiempo, vean sus opciones y igual pueden presentarse el otro año, pueden aplicar otras cosas. Eh, para mí las aplicaciones exitosas son esas que se programan con tiempo y son esas en las que puedes de verdad ver con calma los programas, evaluar tus opciones, poder de alguna forma también enriquecer tu perfil profesional. Eh, ya, creo que esa es mi única recomendación y que no les dé miedo que mucha gente aplique a él. Sí, creo que las personas colombianas somos muy talentosas. Todos mis compañeros colombianos, los que conozco acá, son personas supremamente talentosas y que pueden lograrlo, que no nos dé miedo, que porque vengo de esta universidad, que no es una universidad tanto, o porque vengo de esta ciudad, quizás no lo voy a poder lograr. Creo que el mensaje es definitivamente sí lo podemos lograr. Somos estudiantes sobresalientes también acá, no quiere, claro, la barrera del idioma a veces puede dificultar un poco las cosas, pero también hace que la experiencia sea retadora y que puedas aprender muchísimo más porque estás por fuera de tu zona de confort. Entonces, definitivamente, si quieren estudiar en el exterior, si quieren estudiar en el Reino Unido, consideren LSI porque para mí ha sido un gran lugar.
Thanks, Laura. And I don't know if maybe Nathan, do you want to share like a final message just to finish the session?
Yeah, we'll see you all in September, I hope.
Yeah, that's good. Good. So that's all for today. Thanks everyone for being here. And you're gonna receive that email that we talked about with Nathan. Have a really good afternoon, and thanks, Nathan, for being here as well. Thanks, Laura.
My pleasure. Have a lovely weekend, everyone, and good luck.